Shedeur Sanders has done everything right. He attacked rehab with discipline, showed leadership from the sidelines, and returned to practice sharper than ever. His movements were fluid, his reads quick, and yet the coaching staff offered only silence in return. Kevin Stefanski once again gave reporters the same vague line, "We need to see how he responds." But no one's fooled. Sanders isn't being held back by injury, he's being held back by fear. The Browns are playing politics, and Sanders' rise threatens the order they've clung to despite mounting evidence that it's failing.
If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed.
Every missed rep isn't about caution, it's a quiet act of suppression. The Browns' refusal to elevate Sanders is becoming impossible to justify. Gabriel's inconsistency, the demotion of the offensive coordinator, and a crumbling offense all point toward the need for change. But instead of rewarding merit, the coaching staff is clinging to a narrative that keeps them safe. Stefanski's strategy may protect egos, but it sacrifices wins. With pressure rising and critical games ahead, burying Sanders is starting to look less like leadership, and more like sabotage. Kevin Stefanski isn't saying much, but what he's not saying is everything. In his latest press conference, he tiptoed around Shedeur Sanders' status like it was some top-secret military file. He didn't confirm Sanders was ready. He didn't promote him. He didn't even acknowledge what everyone watching already knows. The rookie quarterback is back, healthy and prepared. And the fact that Stefanski still won't name him QB2? That's not caution. That's control. Plain and simple. The narrative that's been quietly brewing all season has now been dragged into the light. This isn't about injury management anymore. It's about politics. It's about a coaching staff trying to delay the inevitable. And the longer they delay, the more obvious the manipulation becomes. Shedeur Sanders was sidelined with a back injury. That much is true. But he's been pushing in rehab. He's been showing up, staying disciplined, staying professional, and doing everything a young quarterback is supposed to do. And now, after being cleared to return to practice, he's still being treated like a footnote. That's not a Kevin Stefanski's strategy at this point is calculated silence. Say just enough to keep people calm. Just enough to avoid a media firestorm. Just enough to protect the starter, Dillon Gabriel, from any threat. Because what's happening behind closed doors is a balancing act between perception and performance. And Stefanski clearly believes naming Sanders as the backup would be throwing a lit match onto a powder keg. But here's the truth, the powder keg's already smoking. Dillon Gabriel's been holding on to the starting role, but the results speak for themselves. The offense isn't clicking. The rhythm is off. Decision-making has been inconsistent. And to top it off, the offensive coordinator has already been stripped of play-calling duties. That's not tweaking. That's a red flag. That's a coaching staff in damage control. And yet, even in that mess, Stefanski continues to deflect. He won't talk about giving Sanders more reps. He won't talk about moving him up the chart. He won't talk about the possibility of Sanders contributing, even as the offense continues to. That's not conservative. That's manipulative. The Browns have reached the point where keeping Shedeur Sanders buried is no longer defensible from a football standpoint. He's healthy. He's practicing. And the team is struggling. The idea that he might not be ready doesn't hold up anymore. Not when you're watching him move in practice and prepare like someone ready to contribute. The Browns' reluctance to acknowledge his progress is no longer about development. It's about avoiding disruption. Because once Sanders is officially elevated, the clock starts ticking. Every bad snap from Gabriel becomes louder. Every failed red zone drive becomes a question mark. Every loss becomes a missed opportunity. And Stefanski knows. That's why the coaching staff has chosen to keep Sanders in a holding pattern. He's not injured. He's not struggling. He's just inconvenient. And as long as Stefanski can keep the narrative vague, he avoids the one thing he clearly fears the most. A quarterback controversy that forces him to answer for the decisions he's made so far. Because if Sanders comes in and performs, it's over. If Shedeur steps onto that field and even looks better than Gabriel, the entire illusion falls apart. The long-term plan Stefanski's been pushing unravels. The choice to protect Gabriel gets questioned. The decision to delay Sanders' progression gets criticized. And suddenly, the coach who's been hiding behind caution becomes the one who suppressed the team's best option. And the longer this goes on, the more credibility Stefanski. Sanders isn't just being overlooked. He's being sidelined by design. Not because of a medical concern, but because the coaching staff doesn't want to deal with what might happen if he succeeds. And that's the most dangerous kind of mismanagement, when leadership starts acting out of fear instead of focus. And let's be clear, Sanders has done nothing wrong. He's rehabbed. He's trained. He's stayed silent. He's been professional. He's done everything an NFL rookie quarterback is supposed to do, and more. And still, he's treated like a potential threat instead of a possible solution. That's what makes this different. This isn't just about playing it safe. This is about control. Control over the narrative. Control over the roster. Control over who gets to rise and who gets to stay down. And the Browns are now risking their season to maintain that control. They're not just stalling Shedeur Sanders. They're stalling their own progress. There's no excuse left that justifies not naming him QB2. If you don't trust him to start, fine. But refusing to acknowledge his readiness at all? That's not leadership. That's obstruction. That's a coaching staff trying to preserve a hierarchy that clearly isn't working. And the rest of the team feels it. You think players don't see who's earning it and who's being shielded? You think they don't notice who's grinding at practice and still not getting the call? That kind of internal dissonance breeds resentment. It weakens the culture. It sends a message that performance doesn't matter, only position does. That's how you lose the locker room. And if Gabriel struggles again, especially against a team like the Jets, it's going to get ugly. The calls for Sanders will get louder. The questions will get sharper. And the patience? It'll be gone. Stefanski won't be able to hide behind, "We're still evaluating" anymore. He'll be forced to make a move. And when he does, it'll be seen not as a smart adjustment, but as a delayed reaction he could have made weeks ago. That's the corner he's backed himself into. By refusing to name Sanders QB2, he's signaling that this is personal. That this isn't about football logic, it's about roster politics. And when that curtain finally falls, when the fans, media, and players are all asking the same question, he won't have a clean answer. Because there isn't. What's happening right now is a masterclass in how to suppress a rising star to protect a failing system. The Browns are choosing politics over performance, silence over clarity, and stagnation over growth. And the consequences are building. If Sanders finally gets the opportunity and performs, the fallout will be brutal. The media won't praise the coaching staff for making the switch. They'll question why it took this long. They'll dissect every quote, every delay, every moment the Browns pretended he wasn't ready. And the focus won't be on what Sanders can do, it'll be on what was kept hidden. This isn't just a quarterback controversy waiting to happen. It's one that's already happening behind closed doors. And the coaching staff's silence? That's not neutral. That's a choice. A choice to protect their own image at the expense of the team's, so let's call it what it is. Kevin Stefanski is making a calculated effort to keep Shedeur Sanders off the field, not because he can't play but because he might play too well. And if that happens, it would force the Browns to admit they've been making the wrong call all along. And that's a truth they're clearly not ready to face. If you're done with the spin, let us know what you think. Drop your comments below. Should Sanders already be QB2? Has Stefanski lost control of the narrative? And how much longer can the Browns afford to suppress their most promising option? Like this if you're ready to see the Browns finally make the right move. Share it with someone who's been watching this train wreck unfold week after week. And subscribe because we'll be here to break down the next twist, when Shedeur finally gets his shot and the cover-up can't hold any longer. The silence has spoken loud enough. It's time for results. It's time for truth. It's time for Sanders. And now we're here, staring down the barrel of what could be a full-blown implosion, all because the Cleveland Browns coaching staff refuses to call a spade a spade. Let's be honest, when you strip away the media-trained language and day-to-day updates, this is no longer about managing a young player's development. It's about managing public perception. The team isn't protecting Shedeur Sanders, they're protecting themselves from the fallout of admitting they've been wrong. Wrong about Gabriel. Wrong about the offense. Wrong about who's truly ready to, because the data doesn't lie. Gabriel hasn't delivered. The offense has regressed. And the coordinator? Already yanked from play-calling duties. That's not a minor adjustment. That's a full-blown alarm bell. And while all of that's happening, Shedeur is back, suited up, in practice, physically cleared and mentally locked in. Yet somehow, still invisible on the official depth chart. How does that make sense? The truth is, it doesn't. And fans know it. The locker room probably knows it too. So what is Kevin Stefanski doing? He's kicking the can down the road, hoping something magical happens that allows him to avoid the inevitable. But the longer he avoids it, the worse this whole thing gets. Because this strategy? It's not sustainable. Eventually, the Browns are going to lose another ugly game. The kind that hurts morale and kills momentum. And when they do, people are going to start asking, again, why Shedeur Sanders wasn't given a shot. But this time the answers won't be accepted. Because by now it's clear, Sanders is ready. This is about something. This is about fear. Stefanski isn't just delaying a quarterback switch, he's protecting a structure. He's preserving a pecking order that puts loyalty over logic. And that's where everything starts to unravel. Because here's the ripple effect of this decision. First, you lose trust from the fans. They see the same things you do. They hear the same interviews. They watch the same post-game collapses. And they know when someone's ducking accountability. Every week Stefanski dodges the Sanders question. More fans stop giving him the benefit of the doubt. Then you lose the players. The moment the locker room realizes hard work and readiness don't equal opportunity, that's when belief erodes. That's when effort becomes quiet frustration. And that's when players stop buying in. And finally, you lose the team's future. Because in a league built on competition, talent, and timing, when you bench the guy who might be your best asset just to keep the status quo, you're choosing mediocrity on purpose. There's a window for change. A brief, fragile one. And the Browns are closing it themselves. It's not that people expect Shedeur to walk in and become a franchise savior overnight. No one's asking for a miracle. They're asking for fairness. They're asking for the same thing every NFL team preaches. If you earn it, you get it. But what Sanders is earning, it's being shelved. And make no mistake, this isn't just about one guy. This is about how teams are run when the pressure is high and the results are slipping. When egos take the wheel and fear of change becomes more powerful than the need to win. The Browns are a franchise that has fought for years to escape dysfunction. And now, with a potentially game-changing QB waiting in the wings, they're choosing dysfunction all over again, on purpose. It's like watching a rerun of a show that always ends badly, but they just keep hitting. What's even more frustrating is that Stefanski had a golden opportunity. A perfect out. A way to ease Sanders into the conversation without making it a full-blown drama. Just name him QB2. Let him take full practice reps. Signal to the world that yes, he's in the mix. That the future matters. But instead, radio silence. Vague quotes. The same recycled line, we'll see how he responds. He already has responded. With professionalism. With work ethic. With readiness. The only ones not responding are the coaches. And it's going to cost them. Because here's how this story ends if nothing changes. Gabriel keeps starting. The offense keeps struggling. The team loses winnable games. And then, finally, Stefanski caves, not because he wants to, but because he has to. And by then, it's too late. The team's playoff hopes? Fading. The locker room? Divided. And Sanders? Thrown into chaos instead of being gradually introduced with support. That's what happens when you delay what should be inevitable. You turn a smart transition into a desperate Hail Mary. You turn opportunity into pressure. And you turn a potential star into a lightning rod. And that's what's so tragic about all of this. Because Shedeur Sanders hasn't done anything controversial. He's not making waves. He's not going public. He's not forcing the issue. He's waited. Trusted the process. Stayed ready. But how long is someone supposed to wait while a team crumbles around them? This whole plan, if you can even call it that, is unraveling by the day. There are tough games coming up. Including a defense like the Jets, who thrive on chaos and expose offensive weakness like it's their job. What's the Browns' plan then? Stick with the same approach and hope the outcome magically changes? Because that's not coaching. That's gambling. The organization needs to step in. Ownership, front office, someone. Because this is no longer about one decision. It's about accountability. It's about whether the Browns are actually serious about winning, or if they're just pretending again. Every sign points to Sanders being physically and mentally prepared. Every moment he sits behind vague PR statements is a moment the team wastes. And those moments? They add up. Soon it won't just be a quarterback controversy. It'll be a full-scale credibility collapse. So, if you're sitting at home watching this unfold and wondering if you're the only one seeing the cracks, you're not. Everyone sees it. The media sees it. The locker room sees it. And Shedeur Sanders? He definitely sees it. All he's waiting for is the chance to prove them wrong. And when that moment finally comes, and let's be honest, it's coming, it won't be quiet. It won't be smooth. It'll be explosive. Because the longer you suppress talent, the louder it erupts when unleashed. And if Sanders does what many believe he's capable of, the coaching staff won't get credit for the move. They'll get criticized for the... This is the kind of storyline that defines a season. Maybe even a career. Stefanski still has time to rewrite it. But that window is closing fast. And now the pressure cooker is fully sealed. There's no more room for excuses. No more press conference tap dances. No more "we'll evaluate him next week" sound bites. The Browns coaching staff, led by Kevin Stefanski, is out of runway, and everyone watching knows it. Because what was once seen as a slow, careful return for Shedeur Sanders has now curdled into something uglier: deliberate suppression. You don't have to be inside the Browns locker room to feel it. You just have to look at the facts. Sanders is healthy. He's back at practice. And he's outperforming expectations in rehab. All signs point to readiness, not just physical but mental too. Yet week after week his name gets glossed over. His presence gets minimized. His contributions? Essentially erased from the team's public. That's not conservative quarterback development. That's a strategy. And not a subtle one. The way Stefanski is handling this now looks less like leadership and more like protectionism. Because if this really were about putting the best player on the field, Shedeur would already be suiting up on game day. Let's not sugarcoat it. Dillon Gabriel hasn't delivered. The offense is sputtering. The coordinator has already been stripped of play-calling duties. How many more signs do you need that the current system isn't working? And yet, in the middle of this spiral, the guy who's showing the most promise, who's fought back from injury and stayed locked in, is being iced out. And for what? To maintain a fragile quarterback hierarchy that's based more on politics than performance? It's like the coaching staff is afraid of what will happen if Sanders steps onto the field and shines. Because if that happens, the whole narrative they've built, about needing time, needing caution, needing to stick with the veteran, goes up in smoke. And with it, the credibility of their decisions. This isn't just a personnel issue. It's a cultural one. It sends a message, loud and clear, that meritocracy only matters when it doesn't threaten the pecking order. The longer they keep Sanders off the depth chart, the more transparent this becomes. And don't think the locker room hasn't noticed. NFL players know talent. They know who's got the juice in practice. They know who's ready, who's dogging it, and who's getting held back. And when they see a player doing everything right and still not getting the nod, that breeds resentment. That cracks the Browns have clawed their way out of irrelevance for years. They've been building something, or at least trying to. But all it takes is one mismanaged situation to undo that progress. One high potential quarterback being sidelined for reasons that have nothing to do with football. That's how dysfunction creeps back in. And Shedeur isn't making this difficult. He's not out here demanding the spotlight. He's not clapping back on social media. He's showing up, staying ready, and staying quiet. But the silence from the coaching staff? That's deafening. It says everything about their priorities right now. Control. Optics. Politics. Not performance. Not potential. Not progress. And that's where this story turns from frustrating to infuriating. Because there's a window here, a real chance to change the trajectory of this team. To inject energy into a stale offense. To give fans something to believe in. But instead, we're stuck watching the coaching staff cling to a sinking ship just to avoid rocking the irony? They're going to have to make a change eventually. Everyone knows it. The fans. The media. The opposing defenses who have already figured out how to shut down the Browns' current game plan. The only people pretending like everything's fine are the ones wearing headsets. This isn't the kind of drama that gets quietly resolved behind the scenes. The moment Gabriel has another shaky outing, and let's be honest, that could be any Sunday, the noise will reach a fever pitch. And the longer they resist, the more backlash they're going to face. At that point, naming Sanders the backup won't be viewed as a proactive decision. It'll be seen as damage control. And Stefanski won't be praised for finally giving the rookie a shot. He'll be grilled for wasting time and opportunities while the season slipped away. And that's the risk you take when you put ego over execution. Because let's be real, this isn't about Sanders being not quite ready. That excuse doesn't work anymore. Not when he's back in the building repping with the team and fully cleared. This is about fear. Fear that giving him reps, even just in practice, will highlight how ineffective the current setup is. Fear that he'll look too good to ignore. And that's the most damning part of all this. When your organization starts to suppress potential just to protect decisions you've already made. That's when you've stopped building a team and started preserving a narrative. The Browns don't need narrative management. They need leadership. They need boldness. They need clarity. Because this dance they're doing with the depth chart? It's not fooling anyone. It's only making the eventual pivot messier. Let's call it what it is. Shedeur Sanders is ready. And the Browns are actively choosing to pretend he isn't. That's not coaching. That's cowardice. And what's going to happen if they finally do put him in, and he plays like the guy we've seen flashes of? That rookie with poise, vision, and playmaking instincts? Then the whole organization has to answer for why they kept that player on the shelf for weeks, while the offense struggled, while the losses piled up, while the fanbase grew restless. Because it won't be a surprise. It'll be a scandal. You can't keep talent buried forever. Not in this league. Not in a sport that punishes hesitation. And not with a quarterback who's already shown more readiness than the coaching staff wants to admit. So here's where we are, a team with a struggling offense. A starter who hasn't made the leap. A coaching staff under pressure. A rookie quarterback who's healthy, hungry, and being hidden. And all of it converging into one giant, slow-building explosion. And when it goes off, and it will, there will be no spinning it. No last-minute pivots. No, we were just waiting for the right time. That window has passed. And every game they keep Sanders in the shadows is a game they risk everything they've worked for. So what happens now? That's up to Stefanski. But if the current strategy is wait until we're forced to change, then congratulations, they're almost there. Because the fans are done waiting. The team is running out of excuses. And Shedeur Sanders? He's just getting... Let us know where you stand. Has Stefanski already fumbled this situation? Is Shedeur the future? Or should the Browns keep rolling with Gabriel until the wheels fall off? Drop a comment, tag a fellow Browns fan who needs to see this, and if you want every twist of this quarterback soap opera as it unfolds, hit that subscribe button. Because the cover-up isn't going to last much longer. And when it blows up, you'll want to be here for it.